The Otisville Electric Railroad is a railroad jointly operated by the other railroad and the Southern United Railroad. Freight is handled by box cab electrics, while passengers are taken in electric multiple unit cars. Electric multiple unit cars, or EMUs for short, are basically passenger cars with electric motors, and they don't need another engine to pull them. This, unfortunately, makes the EMUs very conceited, and they often tease conventional passenger cars on how they need a steam or a diesel engine to pull them, making them very cross. One day, Lyle was headed to Otisville with a passenger train. Behind this train was Mr. Egan's business car, because he had to have a meeting with the manager of the other railroad. Once they arrived in Otisville, Larry ran around the train and coupled up to the business car. And shunted it into the MU shed. "I don't understand," said the red cars, "why Mr. Egan doesn't put a motor on you. That way, you wouldn't need a silly engine to pull you around." "I honestly like being pulled around," said the business car. "It's nice and relaxing." "A waste of time if you ask us," said the blue cars. "Honestly, Mr. Egan should scrap all these coaches and get DMUs and EMUs like us." The business car rolled its eyes. He didn't feel like arguing anymore and closed his eyes and took a nap before it was time to head back home. Meanwhile, in the yard office, Mr. Egan was having a meeting with the other railroad manager concerning the Otisville Electric Railroad. The power would have to be shut off to the line because the substation needed repairs that weekend. So Mr. Egan said to the other railroad manager, "What do we suppose we do?" "Well," said Mr. Egan, "I can have Bernard handle all the freight work. And I was thinking that Sarah and Jorge could pull the EMUs and cover the passenger services." "I like that idea," said the other railroad manager. The next day, the EMUs were just waking up and were surprised to see Sarah and Jorge backing onto them. "Hey, what the hell is this?" said the red cars. "This is an outrage," cried the blue cars. "Uncouple from us at once." "We can't," said Jorge. "Sarah and I have been ordered to pull you guys for the weekend. The electric wires have been shut off for repairs." "This is really degrading," snapped the red cars. "Oh," said Sarah, "just be quiet. The faster we start, the faster we'll finish." And the two engines set off toward the station. The EMUs made the journey difficult for Sarah and Jorge. They complained about Jorge's loud engine and diesel exhaust, and also complained about Sarah's steam and her loud puffing. Both engines were extremely stressed out and upset. Later that afternoon, Jorge was leaving from a station stop. Ahead on his line, just past the grade crossing, is a small storage yard. Khadijah was there talking to Christin, but she was so into the conversation that she didn't realize that her tender was fouling the main line. But Jorge did. "Driver, stop!" Jorge's driver quickly made an emergency brake application, causing the MUs to bump into each other. And Jorge came to a stop, right in front of Khadijah. "Jorge, what's the matter?" asked Khadijah. "Your tender is blocking the line," Jorge told her. "Oh, I'm sorry." And Khadijah quickly moved forward to unblock the line. "That was very clever how you stopped in time," said Christin. "Thank you, Christin," replied Jorge, and he rumbled away. But the EMUs were furious. They didn't like being bumped like that. "He really bumped you like that?" said the blue cars that night in the sheds. "Yes, he did," replied the red cars. "That Sarah may have an annoying voice, but at least she doesn't bump us." "Well," said the red cars, "we're going to get back at that Jorge tomorrow." "What are you going to do?" asked the blue cars. The red cars explained their plan, and the blue cars smiled slyly. "That's gonna be fun," they said. The next day, Jorge traveled along the line with no incident. The EMUs had been quiet the whole day. They soon arrived at the end of the line. There used to be a diesel route that continued further on, but the line was abandoned many years ago and was severely overgrown. At the end of each run, Jorge, or Sarah, had to switch the EMUs to the other platform, and then go to the yard to get turned around for the journey home. Once the passengers disembarked, Jorge tried to depart, but he couldn't move. "Come on," Come on, he groaned. The EMUs had their brakes hard on. They snickered to themselves. Come on, come on. Jorge pulled and revved his engine as hard as he could while the EMUs chuckled to themselves. Okay, they whispered, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. They then let the brakes off all at once and Jorge took off like a rocket, causing his driver to lose control. Jorge rumbled over the switch. Ahead was the buffers leading toward the old line. Jorge tried to stop, but it was no use. He ran through the barrier and onto the old tracks. And with a loud crash, the tracks gave way beneath him, and his front wheels sunk in mud and rotting tires. Temu arrived with a crane to help get Jorge back on the line. She also brought Mr. Egan, who spoke severely to the EMUs. I've heard how badly behaved you have been for Sarah and Jorge, and you should also know better than to play tricks like that. You're lucky your passengers weren't on board. We're sorry, sir, said the red cars. You better be, snapped Mr. Egan, and if I catch you guys playing tricks like this again, I will have you all demotored and you'll all be pulled by locomotives. The red cars shut their eyes tightly at that remark. Kevin arrived at a conventional passenger train to take Jorge's passengers back to the station. Later that day, Temu helped Jorge and the red cars home. Once in the safety of the shed, the EMUs apologized. Sarah, Jorge, said the blue cars, we're sorry about how we treated you. And we're sorry for causing your accident, added the red cars. Well, it's nice of you guys to apologize, said Jorge. And we accept, smiled Sarah. Thank you, smiled the red cars. Let's bury the hatchet and all be friends, smiled the blue cars. I have no problem with that, Jorge said. What about you, Sarah? No, smiled Sarah. I don't have a problem with that. That made the EMUs happy, and they all talked until they went to sleep. I'm happy to say that whole weekend actually humbled the EMUs. They're much more behaved now and stopped teasing the conventional passenger cars. And although they are still proud that they can move on their own, that they admit that it's nice to relax and be along for the ride for a change.